Hello everyone. It's me, Chatham on a Coffee, and I'm here today at request of members of the Humankind community, as well as, well, something I wanted to do anyway, is my thoughts and a little talk about the closed beta, how I approach the game, my perspective on things, balance, changes, etc., etc. I'm just going to try to sum it up relatively quickly. I know whenever I say I'm going to do it relatively quickly and try keep it half an hour, I end up going on for an hour or longer. So let's try to cut it down a bit. I'll do a little bit of gameplay in the back so you guys have got something to watch whilst I'm rambling. So, the closed beta. How did I find it? Well, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Just to put it simply, I mean, most of you have seen my other videos, if you've seen me on Twitch, or if you've watched some of the actual playthrough I did, I have really had fun with the closed beta. It has its issues, it's got some balance issues, it's got some bugs, many of which I imagine will be ironed out before the game is fully released. But that being said, what it presents with just even with the bugs and the balance issues, what it presents already is a fantastic 4X. The combat is by far some of the best I've seen of any 4X for years. And as you guys know, I am a bit of a militarist player, so I am very much enjoying the fact that combat is so integral to the game's functioning, difficulty, that sort of thing. But also the building aspects, the district placement, the expanding your empire, the territory systems. I think that unit types and science isn't too complex. I think I could do with a little bit more diversity, but there's going to be a mod kit. We haven't seen much about it yet, but there is going to be a mod kit, so that can always be, hashed out later on. Looking forward to see what the mod community has to do with this game, because I love the mod communities for pretty much every title I've played ever. So looking forward to see what's available. Now, that being said, some people were asking me about how I approach the game, how my perspective and playstyle and stuff sort of works into the game itself, how you go about beating the AI, scoring these high scores that I do, and that sort of thing. So let's go over a few of them, right? First things first. It took me a whole week to get my high score, right? And I could beat it. I could beat it if I played more, but I don't know if we've got that much time on the closed beta still. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that I've got a long way to go. I might be very good at the game already, but the game's not out yet. The game's not done. There's going to be changes, and I still have a lot of practice to do. You could play a 4X for hundreds of hours before you get to the point that you can say you're actually okay at it, right? I'm still an amateur as far as most 4X players go, It's going to take a long while before I can confidently say I'm at the skill level which is required to play the game at a high level. I'm talking a high level, right? So, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? I'm just saying words, right? What does that actually mean, though? Well, to be honest, it means that we're gonna have to wait till the game comes out. Sorry, that's all I can say. But I can talk about how I've approached the scenario, the pre-generated map that we've been given for the closed beta, and how that's sort of changed how I approach the game. So, it is a scenario, the map is always the same every time. The players are always in the same places. Certain things like the animal sanctuary spawn in the same places. Some of the curiosities spawn in the same places, at least at the very beginning of the game. So there are certain definitive things. There are certain aspects that are always going to be the same no matter how many times you play it. And you can learn to play these, right? So learning to play them is very important. It's like, I've given the example before, Civilization 4, Earth 18 Civs. I played loads of it back in the day when the game first came out. And Earth 18 Civs strategies are built around the assumption that the game can be played, in theory, turn perfectly, right? Because there are less variables because it is a scenario, right? Vinakunka is always going to be here. Danikal Desert is always going to be down here, you see? So there are certain variables that you can control, right? because they're always going to be the same in a scenario. So that's part of my perspective of playing and how I get my scores and how I treat the game. But how do I treat the game as a whole, right? Now, based on certain changes with the closed beta, and I'm sure they will be changed again, there are certain aspects which I will go into. Just give me a moment to maybe move my dudes around. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to do some content whilst I was getting distracted, playing another run. There you go. There's the Danikal Desert. Very nice. We'll kill this deer. Why not? There we go. Should probably just age up now. Let's age up as well, I don't know. Let's age up as the Mycenians. Why not? Let's go age up as the Mycenians. There we go. Right, so how do I approach the game? Well, there's a couple of changes. Let's talk about the changes in the closed beta so far. And keep in mind that everything that I say is based on playing on Humankind difficulty, which is the highest difficulty in the game. All of my opinions, tier lists, balance, perspective of the game, it's all based on the fact that I'm playing on the highest AI difficulty, right? Not multiplayer, that's not available yet. Of course, the game's not out. And it's not based on, I have no opinion of the lower difficulties, right? If I can win the game on the highest difficulty, then I'm going to continue to play on the highest difficulty because that's what challenges me the most. And I like to be challenged. So, it's all based on that. Now, first things first, a few things changed from Victor to closed beta. I want to talk about those first. Science. Science takes longer. I'm not sure exactly how much, but it feels like it takes longer, right? I don't know by how much. I might be talking shit here because I haven't looked at the actual numbers, and I do care about actually looking at the real numbers rather than making sweeping assumptions. But as far as I know, the closed beta has more expensive tech. Oh, we're going to get an attack here. Okay. Oh, there you go. Are you going to attack me as well? Oh, they are. Nice. They really don't want me to burn down their outposts. Well, I'm not going to move. Okay, well, guess they're just going to stand there. So, science takes a bit longer. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means it takes longer to get everything, right? It takes longer to get better units. It takes longer. Now, this might just be a feeling rather than actual fact. But it feels like it takes longer. Which means you have to invest more to get the same stuff out of it as well, right? So things like going on to scientists immediately, right, in your getting your population on science is very, very important. Because otherwise it takes a very, very long time to get any real technology done, right? As you can see, it's going to take us a while to get that stuff done. So science is obviously much more important, and it's also harder to keep up with the AI on higher difficulties. They're able to get more production, food, money, and science, and because they have more, this comes into another point later, stability, they can build more districts, they get more science, and it's a compounding issue where the AI, if they get ahead, they'll get really, really far ahead, because part of the mechanic for snowballing is stability. So let's talk about changes to stability. Part of them making the game more difficult, I believe, is making stability harder to acquire. On Humankind difficulty, you have a, well, it says I have a base here of 10. I believe I'm supposed to have a base of 20. Either way, I have a base stability, and it's very low. I've checked on the lower difficulties, I've seen people's screenshots, their base stability is higher. On higher difficulty, stability is, well, there you go. Most of my stability is generated from ideologies, i.e. civics, which I now can show you, these. In the middle, they provide bonus stability in all cities. As you go further towards one thing, you get more of a bonus, but you also lose the stability. And honestly, at this difficulty level, the stability is more important than anything else, because stability means districts, which means economy. So actually keeping your ideologies, juggling them, and keeping them in the middle is the best way to get stability. That's how I treat the ideologies, right? With the stability changes. It also means that getting bonuses to your stability via natural wonders, via luxury resources, which they nerfed as well. They now only give +3 stability. They used to give +5, which is awkward because a district consumes 10 stability, so you actually need 4 luxes rather than 2 luxes to make up for it. How do I feel about that? I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think Luxes were a bit too powerful, so I'm okay with the nerf there. But I find base stability, here's the thing. I get a big penalty to base stability. The AI gets a big boost to base stability, which means for every district I build, I'm going to have to deal with the stability penalties. The AI can build about 10 districts before they even have to worry about stability, which also means when you capture their cities, you'll have huge stability issues because they haven't built any buildings to keep. Well, sometimes they have, but most of the time they're very lax on building stability boosting buildings because they don't need them. And it makes sense. Like if you don't need stability boosting buildings, you shouldn't build them because they don't directly improve your economy. Which means capturing AI cities, sometimes they can just be in revolt for ages and you have to whip a bunch of the population away to build garrisons and commons. I tend to prefer garrisons, I'll talk about that a bit later. But because of that, yeah, it's a compounding issue, right? So I think stability as a base value should be set for both player and AI at any difficulty to just like a straight 50. As a base value, just straight 50. There you go, job done, right? Would that be OP? Would it make the AI too easy? I think it would make the AI build more balanced cities, which wouldn't really impact them because they still have all the bonuses to food and production. It would just mean that capturing their cities doesn't feel so bad, where you have to spend all your time just building a shit ton of garrisons to like. I mean, still, it's only like 10 turns investment, but in a 300 turn game, 10 turns is. You're using up quite a lot of time to do that, and you also have to use population if you're going to whip them out fast enough. And later in the game, when you lose the ability to do that because you research encyclopedia, I think, when you research that, you can no longer whip pops, and then because they increase this is another thing I'll go into, the hurry production with gold, because they increase the cost of that, well, you're basically stuffed, right? Now, hurry production with gold, I think it's almost 4 times as much as it used to be, which is way overkill, because money is actually, and they also reduced the ways to make money as well. So it's actually really difficult to generate cash in the current version of the game. Very, very difficult to generate cash. Trade is nerfed. Market districts are something you generally want to avoid, at least in my opinion. Again, all of this is my opinion, but generally you want to avoid market districts. And trade got nerfed, and unless you're taking a merchant civilization, and even then some of the merchant civilizations like Carthage aren't inherently going to increase your income, it can be very, very difficult to actually get a reasonably high income in this version of the game. So just like to make that clear just right now that it can be tough, right? It can be tough. And the buyout cost increase, I think they increased it too much. I genuinely think they might have increased it too much. If I was to say how much it needed to go up, I wouldn't say 400%, right? I'd say make it twice as expensive, right? And reduce the income by about half of what it was in Victor, but it's lower than that, and the buyout costs even more expensive. Now, you can still make a very merchant-heavy, very gold-focused civilization. You can do that. I've done it. And it does work to an extent. It's nowhere near as powerful as it used to be, which is good because it used to be absolutely ridiculous. Like I did a run where you could just run nothing but merchants. Like I didn't build a single maker's quarter. I just bought everything out, right? Which is absurd. You shouldn't be allowed to do that because it just completely just nullifies an entire resource of the game, which is stupid. But now it's the other way around, where money is mostly used to acquire trade routes and upkeep an army, but it's not really used to buy out buildings. Now, I personally am actually okay with that, but I think they should just change out the buyout mechanic entirely, right? Rather than buy out immediately finishing a building, they should make the buyouts cheaper, but make it so you can only buy out once per turn per city. And what it should do is, rather than finishing the building, it should just pay for all of the production on it. It should just pay for all the remaining production so that you finish the building in one turn. Which would mean the production would overflow, which will help you finish your next building as well, which is a pretty reasonable deal, right? That's what I'd do personally, but that's one thing they changed is production buyout. They changed science to be more expensive. They changed stability, so stability is harder to acquire. So what does this mean? Well, mostly it's just harder to build your civilization, which it was probably a bit too easy in Victor, so I'm kind of okay with that. But let's talk about the one thing that I think is, quite frankly, dumb. This is the one change I really don't like, and and when I figured it out, I just had like an epiphany at one point. I was making a cup of tea, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, the maths doesn't add up. The maths does not add up. So I want to talk about an important aspect. An important aspect that changed my entire ethos for playing the game, and has helped me, you know, get the runs to the point that I've been playing at. Food. Food. Now, some people, I've had a little discussion with this on the Reddit. Some people, I think, don't quite understand where I'm getting from, but they increased, I don't know the exact numbers from Victor, but they increased how much food that people consume, right? Now, to go into specifics, let's just say, oh, I should probably attach this, let's do that. To go into specifics, how do we go into specifics? Well, simply, food. Food from population consumption, 8. Alright, so this one person, we've got one pop in our city right now, is consuming 8 food. If I make them a farmer, they produce 6 food. Now, does anyone see an issue with that? Does anyone see an issue with that? I tried to explain this on the Reddit, and I think it either went over people's heads or they don't quite understand what I'm getting at. Putting population on food. Now, I will also note, if you get calendar, you can build a granary, which gives 2 food per farmer, right? That means farmers produce 8 food. Now, population also, it consumes, I don't know why they made this change either, but population consumes more food the more population there is, right? So if you have more pops, pop consumption will go up to about 10. I think it goes up to about 10, but it could even go higher than that. And the next food upgrade doesn't come until the early modern era, where you get, where is it? Supply lines, which gives you grain silos that give us an extra 2 food per farmer. But even if you get supply lines and get grain silos, which they're quite difficult to build actually, they cost a lot of industry, your farmers are producing 10 food. Now, if your pop consumption is 10 per pop, currently it's 8 per pop, a farmer is not actually producing anything. Mathematically speaking. Mathematically speaking, and I hate to just go into the maths of it, but, you know, it's a 4x, you know, we like to crunch numbers, especially if we're playing optimally, and we are talking about highest difficulty, and for those of you that go, oh, but it's just the highest difficulty, the food consumption is all difficulties. All difficulties. Farmers are useless because they produce unless you have the correct infrastructure, they produce at net negative, right? Having a pop working a farmer job means they're not actually doing anything because they can't feed themselves. Oh, but your population grows faster. Yes, but it grows faster to its natural capacity based on farmers and tiles being worked. But the pop isn't inherently providing anything. Now, if I have this guy work in industry, yes, my pop's not going to grow very quickly. But it wouldn't matter if my pop grew in 6 turns, because then that pop that just grew would be I'd just go put them on industry. And this guy would still have to be farming to keep that dude in the city alive, or else he'd starve, right? So there's no point having farmers. If you want food, you just build more farming districts. That's literally, I can't stress any more than that. I can't. That's how it works. That's how it is now. Now, do I agree with this? No. This is the most ridiculous and dumbass thing that they changed. A farmer not being able to feed themselves, like civilization wouldn't have existed, because the whole point was that farmers produce surplus so that people could do other jobs that weren't being hunter-gatherers. Now, of course, we have just started the game, right? So agricultural techniques haven't been developed. Yeah, well, as soon as you get agricultural techniques with Calendar, you get granaries and irrigation. Now, irrigation boosts the tile output, right? Tile output, food on river, right? But farmers should not, like, a person who is specifically their job is to produce food should produce more food than they consume, right? Otherwise, they're just subsistent. And even once you get to the early modern era and get grain silos, your population will have expanded to the point that you're consuming 10 food per pop, which means farmers are still subsistent, which is this is like the early industrial revolution, right? I mean, it's not quite the industrial revolution, but like early in industrial revolution, and they have more advanced farming techniques and stuff. They should be able to provide for very large populations. I mean, even in the Iron Age, there was the Iron Age boom when they discovered how to make proper metal tools and like plows and stuff. And you know, there's like historically speaking, farmers can feed themselves. So realistically, it doesn't make sense. But gameplay-wise, because I want to talk about the gameplay, not just the realism aspect. But gameplay-wise, what this means is the only way to acquire more population is by directly working tiles with farmers' districts. Is this a bad thing? No. It means your pops are doing other jobs, which arguably these are the most important jobs in the game anyway. Production, science, money, right? If you're just producing food, food just means you get more pops, which do these jobs anyway. Now, if you're producing an excess of food, if your farmers are actually producing excess, and there are ways to do this in the current version of the game, if your farmers are producing excess, then your population capacity, the total number of pops you can support, is higher. If farmers are producing neutral or net negative, then having pops on farmer jobs means yes, you get up to your capacity sooner, but your capacity is not increased by having farmers. And that's the whole point of having pops work food in a 4x game, right? The more food you're producing, the more pops you can have. So ideally what would happen is if I have 3 pops working food, rather than supporting, say, let's just say for sake of argument, I'd have 10 people in a city. That's my natural capacity, 10 people, right? If I have half those people working food, my capacity should increase. So I should be able to support, let's say, 12 people. So whilst I have 5 people working food, I now have the ability to support 7 people doing other jobs. Currently, that's not how it works. If I had 10 people and 5 were working food, the people working food are either net negative or they're net neutral, right, in terms of output. Which means the 5 people working food have to keep working food forever. And those 5 other people are still doing just 5 other jobs. I haven't increased my total population capacity. And that's why I think the biggest change that needs to be made, I don't know if Amplitude is going to see this, but if enough people kick up a fuss, or, you know, when the mod kit comes out, we'll just change it ourselves. Food consumption of populations should be equal to or less than what a farmer produces without infrastructure. Once, maybe if they made food consumption per pop 6, then once you build a granary, which is a very early technology, that would represent that early on farmers are subsistent, but then they develop technology that allows them to store food and better farm, and then that means they can produce surplus, right? That makes sense, right? That makes sense. Or, you know, make it less. So say food consumption per pop is 5. That means someone working food produces a small, but they do produce surplus. Now, you still technically can produce surplus, but you have to pick certain cultures to do that. And as far as I'm aware, guys, as far as I'm aware, regardless of which culture you look at in history, whether they're, you know, you would classify them as an agrarian culture or not, even, you know, particularly the culture I'm talking about isn't even agrarian in this game, but whether you classify them as agrarian or not, I shouldn't have to pick agrarian cultures or specific cultures for my farmers to produce excess food. So that's the main takeaway from my perspective of the game. Try it yourself. If you've still got time on the closed beta by the time you see this, I'm going to try and get it uploaded today. Try it yourself. Just put farmers to minimum. And only produce food via farmers' quarters. And if you see population becoming farmers, just use the masonry forced labor ability to whip them out to produce more districts. Just try it. Try it. Trust me, it works. It works. You'll have hardly any pops, but they'll actually be doing something useful. And if you need agrarian stars, just add more outposts, add more farmers districts, or just conquer more cities. That's what I'd do. All right, run over. That's my biggest change I'd like to see from closed beta moving forward. Okay. As far as balance between the civs go, it's actually okay. There are some bugs to do with, well, I say bugs, there are some exploits to do with how you handle districts and such things. There are some bugs to do with districts. Green's not having a good time today. They're really not having a good time, are they? Yeah, you can see I'm still on Humankind difficulty, just Green's not doing very much. I wonder where all their tribes are. Out exploring, probably. There we go. Easy kill. Right. And these guys can throw down an outpost there. Very nice. And they can come down to join it. Well, they can just go up here and start exploring. That's fine. So the next thing I want to talk about is how I approach the game, right? Now, how do you get highest score? Well, the way you get the highest score is to fill every star out in every era. Now, the longer it takes to fill out a star, because if other people grab the stars, the reward goes down. Obviously, the main culture ability dictates you get more points from that particular star. So you want to pick cultures, if you want to get a high score, you want to pick cultures which you can fulfill the requirements of their main star as quickly as possible. Now, I found actually one of the easiest ways to do it once you get rolling is to just take militarist cultures. Just take militarist cultures. They're one of the easiest ones to get loads and loads of stars of, especially on higher difficulties where the AI builds more troops. It's very, very easy to get a lot of points just taking militarist cultures. Right, green's now turned into a proper culture, so we'll go conquer them quickly. Unfortunately, his scouts might escape. I'll have to build some archers or something to stop them. But yeah, so as I was saying, you want to pick civs or cultures where you can get the stars very quickly, and this is only if you're going for high score, right, guys? If you're not taking, oh, they went Babylon. Interesting. Well, you're gonna die. So nice to meet you, but you're dead. Alright, he's going to come out and attack me, which is good, because he actually loses more health on his unit if he does that, so... There we go. Right, and then next turn we'll just finish that battle. And then he's pretty much dead. Right. So, yeah, besides picking cultures that you're going to benefit the most from, in terms of stars... obviously, you want to pick powerful cultures. Yeah, you want to pick cultures with very strong abilities. Yeah, for your stage of the game. Cultural blessing, that's a good one. These guys, I want them to move north. We can pick our faith on holy sites. Can start building that. Not too fast about building it right now, though. Let's get more makers' quarters. You guys can go run over here. So that's just for high score purposes. If we're talking about how you want to perform, like how do you do well though? How do you do well? Main things to focus on. A few things to focus on. War. You're playing on a high difficulty for a reason, right? I'm assuming people watching us are going to want to play on higher difficulties. The most important thing to do is make sure you're not a pushover. If you're a pushover, you can just say goodbye to every single run, right? You've got to be able to project power. Yeah? You've got to be able to project power. And you can't do that if you're, well, weak, right? That's not going to happen. So make sure you can power project. Very, very important to do that. And also make sure you're able to support a science-based population. That is one thing I will say for sure you want to do, right? You want to focus on not building loads of science districts. In fact, you don't want to build too many districts full stop. The most important thing to do is get industry districts, because tiles can produce certain resources, right? Tiles can produce certain resources. And the most common are food and industry. Now, we've already established that farmers kind of suck. You want to focus on producing industry and food with districts, and you want your population to be working money and science, right? Because you won't get much of that via, districts. Yeah. So that's my main perspective on districts and population and what jobs they should be doing. Aside from that, expansion. Here's the thing. There is no stability penalty for being big. Go big or go home, basically. Go big or go home. There's my one of my biggest pieces of advice. Go big or go home. The more districts that you build, the more expensive they become. But you can just take more cities, right? Nothing's stopping you from just taking more cities. Besides your city cap. But that is something you can deal with I say relatively easily. Not easily, but relatively speaking, it's not too bad to keep up with city cap with influence. So, yeah. Let's just cut one of these scouts off. Can I manage to catch these out? I can't. That's going to be annoying. I've got to kill his scouts or else he's still in the game, so let's try and kill his scout off. Alright, let's just rotate this guy out, rotate this guy in. Alright, and keep on killing them. There we go, very nice. Alright, they're dealt with. If we kill all his scouts, he'll actually be knocked out of the game, which is awesome. You're running out of food, you can't feed these people. You're building stone rings. You can attach sham. That will allow you to feed the people. Oh, I've got more scouts coming up, good. It's actually a good thing. Right, get rid of those angry barbs. Fight those scouts, they're going to run away. We'll chase them. Alright. Alright, that got burnt down, good. Angry bear. We'll go fight the angry bear. Get the high ground. So expansion wise, also try not to build outposts if you're not going to be able to attach them very soon. Early on in the game it's nice to go land grab like I've done because of the natural wonders. But do keep in mind, try to only take land that you're planning on attaching to your empire relatively soon. You don't want to be taking territory you can't attach, because that's no good to anyone. Alright, we're just going to keep these guys locked down for a few turns. I don't actually have any interest in going and fight. I need to kill this guy up here before he goes and builds another outpost and they throw down another city. Very annoying he managed to escape from my clutches. If we can keep forcing him to retreat, though, that does help. And I'd like to bring these scouts back to maybe help with catching him out. Okay. Doesn't matter if we retreat this, it's fine. Okay, what's next? Oh, civics, yeah. As far as civics go, you can take whatever you prefer. I personally prefer to go grab influence early on in the game, and then later on in the game, things like faith, science, money, they're a bit more important. But early on in the game, you want to try and grab extra influence on Plaza, on main Plaza. It's one of the best ways to get loads of extra influence early. And because we have two main plazas, it does make it very, very quick to do that. Alright, let's go set you back to science. You need more food. So let's go whip out that lumber yard. And don't worry about whipping pops, do it regularly. It's good for you. It is good for you. Alright, no, I don't want to trade with you. I want to kill all your troops. There you go, and they're dead. Right, that's one more scout I don't have to worry about. And you guys can just run over here and see if there's any layers or anomalies you can go grab. Right, so I need to start getting these attached. That would be my next goal in this showcase, I suppose. I'm gonna take the authoritarian there because some of my civics I want to take are gonna be based on liberty focus. Right. I don't want this video to be too long because again, it's just my perspective. And important goals I'd like to say. Firstly, use your influence to build these things up if you can. But even early on in the game, it's more important to get Luxors hooked up with influence because it saves you so many turns, population or money. It's about 400 gold to get them built up otherwise, and people will buy them from you. As far as trade goes, my recommendation would be to you do want to trade with the AI, but you want to just let them buy things from you. You don't want to buy things from them. Just trade with the AI. That's my advice. Just let them trade with you. If you trade with them and then you all of your Luxors get turned off because of one crisis or some barbs raid your trade route and you suddenly have stability issues everywhere. Yeah, just avoid that entirely by just not buying anything from the AI. Just let them buy things from you. Open trade deals, but don't actually buy stuff yourself. That would be my big take there. My big brain take on how you should treat trading with the AI. Okay, we can get this salt hooked up there. And it's very important to get these hooked up early because they actually give some really good bonuses. Like the salt there gives extra food. This sage, not so useful, only gives stab. This salt here would be good. That silk is really good for industrial makers' quarters. You could whip some pops out to get them done a bit faster. The earlier you whip pops, the better because it's cheaper. If it costs more than one pop to whip it, it's probably not worth it. That's one of the things I like to go with in terms of the value you're earning from whipping pops away and that sort of thing. Okay, you guys carry on your merry way. You guys are going to run up here and join in with this army. You're going to go and grab that. And then carry on your merry way. Independence, honestly, depends. If they're angry, fight them. It's good militarist stars. Conquering their cities, fine. If you see an angry barb outpost like we saw up here, go burn it down. It stops them from spawning a settlement there, and they'll go build it somewhere else, which is nice. Honestly, I'll just conquer them. Sometimes I assimilate them. It depends how much influence I'm making. But at the end of the day, you only have so much for city cap, right? You always want to be at your city cap or slightly above it if your influence can support it. It's about 30 influence per city over the cap. I think it's cumulative. Oh, there you go. Green just died. Um, I'm fairly sure if you go over your cap for too long, or like too many cities over the cap, it will start costing you more and more influence per city over the cap. So do be careful not to go like 5 cities over the cap, because that will cost you. The fifth city is going to cost you a lot more than the first city over the cap, is what I'm trying to get at. But you always want to be at your city cap, because every single city is an extra population growing, more pop to work on science and money, which outposts can't do. So yeah, you want to try and get to your city cap or slightly over it as quickly as you can. Early on in the game, it's a good idea not to go over your city cap because your influence generation is still very low. But as the game progresses and you can get more influence generation, it's easier to just like, you know, just start going mad over your cap, especially with certain teams like, say, the Japanese, or any very high influence generation civilizations. Right. Final thing I want to talk about is how I treat aging up. The AI loves to age up really fast in the current patch. It's something I hope that they reduce. The AI likes to age up as soon as they get 7 stars. Like, I could age up now, and it's only turned 29, so we've got a chance to age up really quickly here. One of the AIs already aged up. The AI ages up as soon as they can. You can see that their points, they actually have really high points right now because they got their gold agrarian star if they picked the agrarian civ, if they picked Harappans. But yeah, if the AI currently likes to age up really fast. That doesn't necessarily mean the AI is ahead of you, at least in terms of technology. Technology is the main thing I want to talk about in terms of aging up. There is absolutely 0 point aging up if you still have technology to do in your era. As soon as you run out of text to do, you're wasting science and you have to age up, even if you're missing stars, right? Some of my runs I have like stalled it for like 4 or 5 turns, but only if you're sure you're ahead can you really afford to do that. Science civilizations get a bit of a free pass because they can research from the next era, but just there is no point aging up if you've got text to do, right? Now, if you've got your gold star for technology and you've got your gold star for everything else, you might as well age up, right? If you've gold starred everything, you might as well age up. But if you've got your gold star for science and you're still waiting on other badges, the science that you research will just make your star in the next era easier to get, because the game always has to allow you to get a gold star in science, right? If you're a science civ, this is an interesting thing. I haven't tested it, but I think it would work like this. If you're a science civ and you researched all of the techs from your current era and the next era, as soon as you enter into the next era as a non-science civ, it will automatically gold star you for science because you haven't got any text to research. So there's a thought there. I haven't tested it, but I have noticed that upon reaching the next era with a non-science civ, if I did loads of research from the next era or ahead of time, then I'll only need to research 1 tech to get bronze, 1 tech to get silver, and then 2 techs to get gold, which will then fill up the era. So I think the game does account for that. But yeah, that's my main takeaway. Don't age up. Ignore what the AI is doing. Yes, you might not be able to get the culture you wanted, but please, that's another thing I want to make abundantly clear at the very end of this little talk about the game is don't care about cultures. It's going to sound very odd, but I have played many different cultures in many different ways, some of which I haven't had a chance to play yet because we've only had so much time to play the game. Whilst I do think some cultures are weaker than others, I fully believe you can perform at the highest AI difficulty. Now, multiplayer is obviously not a concern right now because it's not available, but at the highest AI difficulty, you can perform and get a high score, or win the game, come first place, and get a high score with literally any combination of cultures if you play correctly. Any combination. Look, I could take goths and transcend them up to the industrial, and I'd probably still be able to get a above 10,000 score. right? It's all about strategy and good play. Cultures help, but they're not the be all and end all of the game, okay? So please keep in mind that. Very important to keep that in mind, okay? Right. I think that's going to be it for today because I don't want to go on for too long, but that is my general perspectives of how to play the game, how my strategies work. Hopefully that helps some of you. I know the video is already going to be like close to an hour. It's 45 minutes. It's not actually too bad. Finally, a video that's not too long. But yeah, this was on request of some people on the YouTube and also on the Reddit as well. And I also wanted to just do a general my thoughts on the closed beta, some of the balancing things I'd like to see them fix. Bugs, I'm not going to talk about. If you watched my Let's Plays on Twitch or the one I have on YouTube, you'll see a couple of bugs. They're not game breaking for the most part, so I give it a bit of a wave. I think too many people like expect them to have like a fully polished, no bugs at all. Like, uh, it's an ambitious game, right? It is ambitious. It's not something that Amplitude is unfamiliar with because they made Endless Legend. A lot of the systems are very similar, but a lot of how the game works with them is different. So I think I can forgive some bugs if they're not game breaking, you know. And I think most other people, if all it requires me to do is quick save, quick load, it's like 10 seconds out of my day. I'm never gonna get those 10 seconds back. But like, you know what I mean? Like, just it doesn't matter. Most of the bugs don't really matter. Balance wise, again, there'll be a mod kit, and I'm sure the devs are going to make changes to the civilizations before the game comes out. And if they don't, well, I will be the first person to either abuse them to get ridiculously high scores or make some people very mad in multiplayer, and then they'll change them. Or we'll just use the mod kit to change them. We'll make a balance patch ourselves, you know? Like, so balance, I'm not too concerned about. But how the game plays, is it fun? Yes. Yes, it is. I regularly, and I've said it in the Victor open dev. I'm gonna say it in the closed beta. I've said it in all my videos, and anytime I'm streaming, I very much enjoy this game, and I fully recommend it to anyone who's on the fence about, if you've played any of Amplitude's other titles, if you've played Endless Space, if you've played Endless Legend, the mechanics will be familiar, so the gameplay you should enjoy. The narrative is a lot less spoon-fed. You kind of have to make it yourself. If you like that narrative style that they had in Endless Legend and Endless Space, you won't get that same experience. I'll say that now. If you play Civilization and you just want like a civ building experience where you throw down districts, you fight some wars, you build some wonders, you'll get that from Humankind. And honestly, the warfare is the main selling point for me because this is the best like representation of warfare I've seen in a 4X in a very, very long time. Less about random dice rolls like in Civ 4 with like the percent chances. It's not like all in on like the intricacies of promotions and things. But you don't need that. That's basically bloat on a system that doesn't need it. The reinforcement system, the ability to combine armies over larger scale conflicts, the way they interact with districts and their special abilities. The game's not bloated, but it is intricate, and I like that. It's lean. The combat is lean, and it is superb. Love it. As far as the city building goes, it's simplistic enough that anyone should be able to pick it up, but it has enough depth, if you would. It has enough depth that it should keep people who are veterans of the genre figuring out little quirks and how to best lay out your cities and all that for a long time. Like, I'm not a master of the city building aspect yet. I'll get better. I'll get better at all aspects of the game over time, but it's gonna, gotta wait for it to come out first. But yeah, there's my endorsement, and I hope you guys enjoyed. But for now, that is all. So, it's been me, guys. Chaff Commander Coffee. I hope you had fun. Do leave your comments if you've got any questions. I will answer them as soon as I can. Otherwise, I've probably been chatting to you or other people in the Discord or on the Reddit or in Twitch on the live stream. You can find links to all of those Well, except the Reddit, but you should be able to find that yourself. You can find links to the Discord and the Twitch on the front page of the channel and in the About section. You should be able to find it in the About section as well. I hope to see you guys around. Until then, have a good one. I'll see you around.